온통 고깃집에 회식하면 무조건 고기. 그 수요를 다 감당하려면은 동물들이 더 고통스럽게 자랄 수밖에 없는 거잖아요. 더 좁은 공간에 더 싼 사료에 항생제 투여하고 동물이 행복할 수 있는 나라야만이 사람도 행복할 수 있는 나라가 될 것 같아요.
안녕하세요, 교수님. 요즘 어떻게 지내고 계신지 궁금합니다.
I'm doing fine, thank you.
지난달 고별 강연도 했다고 들었는데요. 마지막 그 강연에서 어떤 얘기를 하셨는지 궁금합니다.
Yes, well, I went over my career at Princeton. I talked about the importance of freedom of thought and freedom of expression because there has been some culture of not listening to some people. I also talked to them about the importance of ethics, of living an ethical life, and how living an ethical life can be not only better for others, for the world, but also can be rewarding for each one of them.
이제 시간을 2021년으로 가보고자 합니다. 당시의 영상 잠깐 보고 나서 또 이야기 이어가겠습니다.
Of course, I know that not all Koreans eat dogs. Wildfires, hurricanes led me to think about the ethics.
코로나 이후에 좀 개선되거나 변화한 게 있는지 궁금해요.
The planet is heating up faster than even the scientists who warned us about climate change had predicted. So I think there is still a lot of interest in eating sustainably. And eating sustainably certainly means eating less meat and moving towards a plant-based diet, or at least closer to a plant-based diet. And that is going to benefit the planet and I hope will benefit animals as well.
동물 해방이 출간된 게 1975년이더라고요. 실제 50년간 가장 큰 변화를 뭐라고 보시는지 궁금합니다.
In the European Union, for example, some of the things that I showed in those photos, like the veal calves in those stalls and the hens in those very small cages, they have been prohibited. So you can't keep veal that way. The hens have to have more space. So there is some progress.
식용을 목적으로 개를 도살하거나 사육하는 걸 금지하는 법안이 국회를 통과했습니다.
But on the other hand, there are some things where the problem has just grown, particularly with the eating of fish. This has become a huge problem, and I really should have mentioned that 3 years ago. This is really factory farming underwater. This is now over 100 billion, maybe 120 billion fish raised for food each year, which is larger than the total number of all the land animals. This is a huge problem because fish can suffer as well, and yet they are given really no consideration of the suffering that they undergo. A soup made of a fish called loach, which I believe you call chu or tang. This fish, I have seen videos showing that the fish are killed by sprinkling them with salt. And this is an extremely painful process. And I think other countries are thinking of also making it illegal to kill fish by sprinkling them with salt and find more humane ways, if possible, of killing the fish or else not eating the soup at all.
최근 특히 한국에서도 젊은 층을 중심으로 비건이 되는 사람들이 점점 늘어나고 있는 게 보입니다. 어떤 점이 제일 좀 뿌듯하게 느껴지시는지 궁금합니다.
Well, I certainly feel proud of having helped the animal movement, the modern animal movement of the last quarter of the 20th century and the first quarter of this century, of having helped that movement to develop. And I think that's a really good thing to do. If you like, it shows some humility that we don't just think that we dominate the planet and use it for our own purpose, but we share it with other sentient beings on this planet. And I think that's a really important step for our species to take. So if I've been able to contribute to that in some way, I feel I have accomplished something.
고기를 안 먹지는 못하겠다 이렇게 주장하는 사람들한테는 차선책으로 뭘 하면 좋겠다라고 말씀하실 수 있을까요?
One thing that they can do is make sure that they don't eat meat that comes from animals who have been confined indoors all of their lives, like the pigs and chickens and calves who I showed you. If you can find meat that comes from animals who are allowed to graze freely in the fields, who live a relatively natural lifestyle, of course they will still be killed, they're harmful, and of course they inflict much more suffering on the animals. So it's better not to eat meat at all, but if you're going to eat meat, at least avoid the factory farm products.
동물 실험에 대해서도 많이 언급하고 계신데요. 동물 실험을 하지 않을 경우에 그 어떤 대안이 있는지 궁금합니다.
If we put more effort and more resources into developing alternatives, we will be able to dramatically reduce the number of animals we use in experiments. And perhaps eventually we'll be able to do away with it altogether. And of course now we've had a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. We can now use AI to screen many products that we still test on animals, but AI could tell us that these products are going to be harmful to humans. So I think we need to put more effort into finding and developing these alternatives. And there is a lot of research going on.
교수님께서 최근 새로 개설한 대담한 추론이라는 사이트에 들어가서 보면 AI와 관련해서 동물 친화적인 AI를 만들어야 된다. 동물 LLM을 만들어야 된다. 동물 친화적인 AI라는 건 뭔가요?
It's simply based on doing what is best for humans. And obviously, while it's good for AI to do what is best to humans, it should also try to do what is best for animals. For example, animal-friendly AI, if it's controlling a self-driving car, would try to avoid hitting an animal, not just a human, and also not just a dog, because the dog might be somebody's pet, but it would try to avoid hitting other animals on the road.
실제로 이런 것들을 지금 만들어 보고 있는 곳이 있을까요?
There is no company, no AI company that is at present animal friendly. There are some people who work for some companies who are trying to get them to be more animal friendly, but this is something that is relatively new that we have tried to promote just in the last 2 or 3 years. I hope it will spread. This is certainly something that we need to do soon before AI becomes too locked into a humans-only mode.
교수님이 현재 가장 관심을 갖고 계신 이슈는 어떤 건지 궁금합니다.
Well, I am still thinking about animals. I'm still thinking about global poverty, climate change. The world is warming. This is going to be catastrophic for large parts of the planet, where it's going to be very difficult to continue to live even in another 30 or 40 years. So we really urgently need to move away from fossil fuels. We need to move away from meat from animals who emit lots of greenhouse gases. And we need to develop the alternatives to clean energy so that we can avoid, we can't avoid climate change, it's already happening, but we can avoid the worst and most catastrophic forms of climate change, which otherwise will definitely happen within the lifetime of some of the people who are watching this program.
SDF가 올해 20주년을 맞았는데요. 축하 메시지 좀 부탁드릴게요.
I think that's a really wonderful service, and I hope you will continue to do it not only for 20 years, but for even longer than that. I want to congratulate SBS on the work that it has done for the past 20 years, providing high quality education, absolutely free to everyone who can watch.
앞으로 미래를 고민하면서 우리가 어떤 것을 좀 더 생각해야 되는지 하나 적어주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
Certainly, I can write it down. This is the word I want to show you. I think if we are to live in a better world, we need ethics. We need to think not just from our own selfish perspective, but from a more universal perspective. So that's why I think ethics is essential if we're going to have a future in which the world makes progress, ends poverty, treats animals better, reduces the damage that climate change does, and in which essentially we all help each other as much as we can.
피터 싱어 교수님 같이 해주셔서 너무 영광이었습니다.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak to people in Korea.